Welcome, I'm John Caldera, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Thought we'd talk about something that really is in politics and might actually bridge politics. These guys are not healthy at all. Joey Bunch from Colorado Politics, thanks for being here. Ted Trimpa, of course, from the leftist empire that you've created and rule so benevolently. The reason I want to talk to you is both of you had amazing stories around heart issues, and it was life-changing for you, and it snuck up on you as well. And what amazed me were there's a lot of lessons that I never even thought about. And being conservative, I don't have a heart. I don't need to worry about what you did. But there are real humans out there listening. Let's start over here. Let's go with the Joe Friday thing. What were the facts? I mean, you're a healthy guy, and then you go in to get your heart.
Sure. So 1/3 of Americans have a heart murmur, which is essentially your mitral valve doesn't close flat. It curves down because you have little cords that pull it down, and that creates a bump, which creates the murmur because it causes regurgitation of the blood. So the marriage equality decision came down in June, the end of June. I did a surprise proposal to Arash that Sunday.
Arash is your partner?
Is my partner. And we came back. He's first generation. His mom is from Guadalajara. His dad is from Shiraz, Iran. I hadn't met his dad. Spent a week together. I got anal as a lawyer. I thought, let's update the will. Let's redo life insurance. Life insurance company came back and said, your physical's over 5 years old. You should get that updated.
Because guys don't go to the doctor,
they
period.
Don't. I hadn't been to a doctor in years. So I go to my family doc, Alex Goldsmith, and checks the blood, all that. And he's like, well, let's listen to your heart. And all of a sudden his eyes got really big. And he's like, let's take you across the hall. And the next thing you know, did whatever that sonogram thing is called of the heart.
Ultrasound.
And 3 days later, I was off to New York. Because when it happened, I wanted like a heart surgeon who had done this kind of surgery thousands of times.
And that person was in?
New York.
New York. Amazingly, you didn't go to Cuba where they have socialized medicine. Funny that. Let me go over here. I see you working for years at the paper, at Complete Politics. You're just kind of a fixture. And then one day somebody says, oh yeah, Bunch, he's got a heart attack. He's out. I said, what happened? What?
Unlike Ted, I haven't been healthy. Since I got over 50, like most men, I started slowing down physically. And then the last couple of years, and we started Colorado Politics a couple of years ago, and I was just working 7 days a week, 7 in the morning, 11 at night, because, we're trying to build something. And then covering the election, and then covering last year's legislative session was, I've been covering politics for 30 years, and it was the most grueling, emotionally and physically grueling session that I've ever covered, and then went into the governor's race. So, in December, and I ignored all kinds of symptoms, dramatic symptoms.
Like what?
Well, like I go to meet my friend Sandra Solon, the lobbyist, one day, walk into Zadie's Deli, and I don't know who I am or where I am for a few minutes. And I thought, it must be hypoglycemia, because the other thing was I didn't eat very much. And then another symptom that I would have is, I do a good bit of public speaking, come on television, radio a good bit, and I would get up for it and I would feel great, give a speech, people would laugh, and then by the time I could get to my car, I would be practically throwing up. And my cardiologist explained to it was taking so much adrenaline to make my heart pump because it was so weakened that when the moment had passed, that adrenaline would release, and it's like a marathon runner crossing the finish line. You just throw up, you feel terrible. Even that didn't send me to the doctor, So I went into the...
By the way, I'm convinced this is a completely male phenomenon.
It is.
Because whatever we're dealing with, it's better than going to the doctor. Yeah, not that really. Being with the doctor is that bad. It's talking to the receptionist. It's waiting. There's just something in our genetics we cannot. It's the time. Mm-hmm. It's the uncertainty. He'll be with you in a minute. Here, there's something I think about guys. We'd rather have the heart attack.
It's called white
so you didn't
coat
go.
fever.
You're there. You're there collapsing, and you're not going to the doctor.
Well, on election night, I was at the Republican watch party, and
that made us all sick.
And of course you're going to collapse.
Yeah, of course you have.
Well, I thought I was going to faint, and then somebody wanted to talk to me on the radio. Well, I can do that, and then the next morning, I had radio at 6 and 7 o'clock the next morning. So I just kept finding reasons or kept pushing myself beyond what I should have done. Then in December, I I came down with pneumonia and I was terribly sick, throwing up. So I said, well, I'll go to the emergency room at 4 in the morning. I'll get that good shot to take care of the nausea. I'll be home in 2 hours. And I got home about 3 weeks later because I went into the emergency room on Thursday, and then on Friday I had just a massive heart attack, and I was dead for 15 minutes. They were doing CPR.
For 15 minutes?
I was really lucky because they were concerned that my organs, my kidneys, those sorts of things, they need blood a little more often than that.
You were gone for 15 minutes.
And just luck.
What if they had stopped
at 10 minutes?
At 10 minutes or 15, at 14?
I know. My doctors told me that, it was looking bad. They were starting next of kin stuff, and all of a sudden I decided to gasp and rejoin the living. So it was it was the luckiest case of pneumonia ever.
So for you, it was pneumonia that saved your life.
Right.
For you, it was getting the physical so you could get your life insurance updated.
Right.
And in which
you
case,
could actually say the Supreme Court saved me, or a life insurance company saved me.
I'm evil. I'll go with the insurance company. So basically, without those things, both of you would be gone right now.
Oh, yeah.
Colorado would be saved politically, and the state of journalism would be much better.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. And it's one thing to be close to death, and I haven't quite gotten my mind around everything that's happened. That, how do you come back from the dead? And as you know, I've had our friends, that have died the last couple of years, and I'm constantly finding myself in these moments of thought that why me? Why was I the lucky one that got
It's survivor's
to live?
guilt.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
we're all of the age now. We're starting to lose colleagues and friends, and I don't think any of us feel that much older. Well, let me ask you. So your surgery was very particular, and so it wasn't like a heart valve. What was done?
Well, it's a heart valve, but arteries are clean. I mean, I could eat bacon every day. I could have eggs every day. Because the heart murmur, what happened on mine was the cords became detached, so then the flaps came up and then they tore, and it was essentially doing this.
Oh my Lord.
So 60% of my blood was being pumped back into my lungs. And I was asymptomatic. I felt some tightness a little bit, and since then we've went backward, and we think we know when it blew. We think it's somewhere around the gay marriage decision or marriage equality decision. And thank God I went in.
All right, let me again stop when I'm getting too personal, but you've been very public about the recovery part of this, which I think shocked you. Your recovery, I'm still thinking it hasn't hit yet, but you went through some massive depression about this that really took you by surprise, and I think it's important people know about this. So what happened?
So let's start with 1/3 of Americans who have a heart murmur, which 1/3 do. You should get it checked every 3 months, at least every 6 months. All they have to do is listen to it. But the other thing I learned with open heart surgery, 30%, roughly a third, the 8th, 9th, 10th week out on your recovery will suffer some form of depression. And many doctors believe it's something called pump head. And it's because during heart surgery, mine was 5.5 hours, you have a machine that pumps your blood, and you have a machine that does your breathing. And for some people, that changes a chemical, balance in your brain, which creates the depression. So, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you faced death. No wonder you felt bad."
Right.
That was nothing.
That is a theoretical thought experiment that can trip you up. But you're saying there's actually a chemical reaction that causes severe depression.
I went into the slide, and even though I had one of the best heart surgeons in the country, potentially in the world. He did Clinton surgery, Letterman's, Robin Williams. I used every political connection I had in order to get him. But they don't quite explain everything to you. Oh, you may feel a little down, a month and a half out. And I found myself at the beginning, it was middle of November-ish, because I live in a 2-story place that has a spiral staircase.
Two months after? Or?
2 months after.
Okay.
And I was measuring rope. I was going to hang myself. And I had this out-of-body experience where it's like, why are you doing this? And actually went back to my family doc, who walked me through, this is what's happening. And it's taken almost 2 years to get the chemicals right. And for me, what also happened is that that period of severe depression then brought out all kinds of experiences that I'd had. And that, exacerbated everything that I was going through.
Were you suicidal, or was this just a passing thought? I mean,
No, suicidal.
So you would go through all this trouble to save your life so that you could just end your life.
Yeah. Now, I'm way past that now, but you still have, what happens to me now is I thought I was out of the woods, and then when the Bourdain, Kate Spade, and then a dear friend of mine's brother committed suicide all within 3 days, that was what, last July? It was like he pushed me off a cliff, you know, and it took a month and a half to get me going. So on the mental health piece, it's like getting the flu. It's, you know, a true illness, and we need to treat it like that. It's not something that you shrug off. It's not that a crazy person. You can't like wake up in the morning and shake and be fine.
Did you have depression before this? I mean,
No.
You know, because listen, I lost my daughter. I went through depression. I went through suicidal thoughts. I've had anxiety. I've had all these great things. I look back at Winston Churchill and Lincoln. There was no medication there to help them. They were, you know, it was grim. You never had any of that until this.
Until this. And it's taken a while. I mean, drugs that have been around forever have been great for me. Because the first thing I said to the doctor is, whatever you give me, if it causes me to gain weight, you're toast. Vain gay men, we're not gaining weight. Having enough trouble with that. But so we ended up with Wellbutrin, which has been around forever, and then lamotrigine, which is a drug for bipolar people, which has done wonders for me.
What has it done?
That and therapy.
Yeah.
That and therapy.
Well, bring it over here. So you were in the hospital. Pneumonia saved you.
Mm-hmm.
I've had bilateral pneumonia. It almost killed me. I can't imagine it ever being a gift. Have you gone through a depression yet, or yet? As if it's not a guarantee. But I'm just curious.
For a guy who died a few months ago, I've been the luckiest guy that you know, and I've had 2 traumatic things that have happened to me in the last 6 years that have shaped the shape of my brain, the shape of my heart. One of them was the Newtown shooting. I covered that. And afterwards, you know, and I was leading a team of reporters while I was there, so I didn't process the amount of grief and the ocean of grief. You know, it's one thing when it's a terrible thing when it's strangers in a movie theater, but when it's 2 classrooms full of first grade children, it was a terrible thing. And I went through a terrible depression. I've written a column about it last year. You know, I had PTSD after, and I would just have these crying jags that I couldn't control or understand why. And I didn't do anything right. I didn't get the help I needed for way too long because I thought there was a stigma. You know, I'm the guy who writes the sad stories.
I understand that world.
And so eventually, though, I did get the help, and I take Wellbutrin. It's the same thing I take, and I learned so much from that it's helped me with the depression of this. Is that you've got to talk to people. You've got to go. The stigma is not that you sought help. It's the stigma is not seeking help.
Talk about the stigma part of it. You said, does the stigma mean something to you as well? Is there?
Oh, sure.
Was this? How so? What stigma?
Well, for me,
Wait a minute, so you're telling me that a gay man is worried about the stigma of being depressed?
It's actually put aside the gay. I know it's kind of hard for some people. With me, put aside the gay.
I'm just thinking about what society wants to throw at you to say, you know, you should be stigmatized about this.
No, I think it's about dumping on your friends. That you don't, you know, if I'm not sunny, people don't love me. And I feel like if I talk to people, one, they'll think they won't let me go do these kinds of stories that I'm good at. And
well, that's also your personality. I mean, I've known you a long time. You know, you've got that reporter's personality as a guy who's quick with the joke. You know, it's, yeah.
You're hard not to like.
Yeah, well, how do you explain
but
to
somehow
people
we
that
manage it.
You're in a bathroom stall? Another Zadie's Deli story. I met a professor there from DU once, and I had one of these anxiety attacks. I'm in the bathroom crying and sweating and can't control it. And then I went out and I lied to him and told him I got a phone call. I should have just told him I was sick because I really was, but I was so nervous about people finding out that I'm having these.
It's so frustrating. I still do it today.
Issues.
I was doing it this morning because getting ready for this, it was all of that comes back.
Yeah.
It's like waves start to hit you, and I was worried all that would happen here. Thank God it happened this morning. But back to the stigma piece.
Yeah.
For me, a large part of what I do is I'm seen as an operative, seen as someone, you know, it's about winning. You take them out in the back alley and slit their throat, throw them on the ground, stomp on their chest, watch the blood pop out of their eyes. You come around and go to church.
Right.
Actually, I don't go to church, but and it was for me a sign
take the
of
cannoli, leave the gun. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a sign of not having strength.
Yeah.
And
What do
it's
you mean?
crazy.
I don't understand.
No, I understand completely.
I don't. Help me
It's
out.
just giving up control, and that you're, that people see you that you can't take care of your business. And guys like me and Ted, we take care of our business. Is that right, Ted?
Yeah, exactly. You know, who do? This sounds arrogant. I don't mean it that way, but people come to us. What do you think? What do you think is going on here? What do you think I should do here? We don't go to them. You know, and even today, I fell apart with a friend of mine. And it hurts because it's like I'm not supposed to be seen this way, you know. And it comes back to it. I think in part I think it's a guy thing. You don't want to be seen as weak.
It's also our age. So I'm 55. I've had my bouts with depression. You know, thank God for pills. You know, there's but you know, the thought of, no, you need to do this. No, do you know who the hell I am? I don't do that. And the idea that, well, what if somebody finds out? You know, it's like, and I think a younger generation doesn't have that stigma. I think our previous generation had it, and how many lives could be better off if they didn't?
Right. Which is in large part why the two of us are here. Because when people hear this, on the heart surgery front, I'll meet with anyone who's going to go in and have open heart surgery and walk through what the experience was like for me. Because there were so many mistakes that we made going into this that exacerbated the problems.
Like what?
First of all, so I had the surgeon in New York. The condition of having the surgeon in New York do it, he said, you have to stay here for a month. In case something goes wrong, I want to fix it. I don't want somebody else fixing it. And I thought, oh, okay, we can handle that. So literally, Arash and I went out alone. And I have to give a little plug for Fox 31. They let him take off almost a month worth of time. Didn't count with any, for anything in terms of his vacation. And that was idiotic, because here I am about to go into surgery. I literally came out, again, being anal, and I had this little 3-ring notebook, and I handed it to Roush, and I'm like, okay, the living will's in here, everything that you need. If something goes wrong and you have to make the decision, all you have to do is flip it open, and away we go. And there was like nobody there sitting with him. The only person that was there when I came out of the open heart surgery, and you go into ICU first, and I think I had, over 12 different tubes that were coming out of me, and they like force you to breathe, and I was upset. And so I was writing these nasty little notes about I want this nurse fired and I want that person fired just because I was mad and in pain. And we should have never done that. We should have had more of a support network there.
So in other words, he shouldn't have been there by himself.
Correct.
He's out of his element. You're out of the element.
Thinking we can do it.
Right.
So I sat in a hotel room, and he would go out during the day. I'm like, don't sit here with me all day. And I do my little walks, the little exercises I was supposed to do. And then when we came home, it was literally from bed to front door, and I sat there for 3 months. And it was idiotic, because people are like, well, we can come see you. And I'm like, oh, don't waste your time. And that was really,
lesson
really
being,
stupid.
Don't be afraid to ask for the help. In fact, plan for it beforehand.
Absolutely.
Is that the big lesson when you talk to somebody before they have? Big
lesson. You're not being a softie. You're not trying to gain attention. It's like, oh, woe was I, come see me. It's real, because it's not like we don't have friends that wouldn't come. They would, but when you tell them, don't worry about it.
They believe you.
They believe you.
Because why not? You've been truthful so far. What about from your point of view? If somebody was walking into it right now, what would you tell them?
I would tell them the same thing as in mental health is you've built this lifetime of friends. Let them support you the way you would support them. And I was in the hospital over Christmas and was really sick. And I was just blown away. In fact, the most humbling thing of all this is how you find out who your friends are, the people who step up, the people who bring you food, the people who are just there to, that you can reach out and call. And Ted, anytime you need somebody to talk to, I hope you feel free to call me. But, you'll be amazed the number of friends that you have. I don't have much family, you know that. But my friends were there every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough. I don't know what I would do without them. But you know what? I learned that during Newtown when I kept all that inside, and it just got worse and worse. And as I said, the two most traumatic things that emotionally that have happened to me, maybe in my life, both happened on December 14th. The Newtown shooting was on December 14th, and 6 years later to the day is when I had the heart attack. So this year on December 14th, I think I'm going to go to New York City and have a good time.
Let me know. I'll come with you.
It's you mentioned about finding out who your friends are, and the corollary to that is you find out who your friends really aren't as well. I think losing my daughter was for me just the seminal moment of my life, and to find out these people you just kind of knew as acquaintances that would come up and actually keep you alive, and it's like, oh my God, I barely even knew you existed, and the stories that they would tell me of what they've went through and how they do it, and then some of your closest friends who actually would kind of stay away as if it's contagious somehow. That I don't want to think about my child in that situation, so therefore I'm not going to hang out with you right now because that's a little too real for me. Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are battling depression have that as well, because being around somebody who's depressed is not fun.
It's depressing.
It's depressing, and it's hard, and because depression often manifests as anger, and so. Yeah, hey, can I hang out with you, Ted, so you can yell at me? That sounds like a good time.
Which I would do.
Yeah, well, you do it anyway.
I tell you, in our building, I think I told off half of the building.
Really?
During that time. I have to give a little plug for someone who was there, obviously in addition to Ross, was Gail Shetler.
Really?
Once she found out about the diagnosis, she texted me or called me every single day for a year. And no matter where because she does a lot of work overseas, no matter where she was around the world.
The fact that you owe her a lot of money had nothing to do with it?
No, and I'll say this, all I had to do was give a hint that someone was being a problem for me, and voila, they would disappear.
Really? How
there's
so?
a side to Gail. Oh no, I love Gail.
No, what do you mean?
Well, no, she just take care of it. It's like, you'd be helpful to Ted or get out of the way.
Well, I know. I needed some more about that. So what do you mean?
Come on.
So
this is the same thing we do with political discussions. Right. There's like only so much I'm going to tell.
You're willing to tell. All right, but the fact is, you have an advocate, and I think that's the other part.
Yeah.
And if Gail's the advocate, then she's the advocate. But you need somebody when you're not at 100 who knows you to do it.
I'd like to give a plug to the state of Colorado because, I did a story about a year ago. They reauthorized a program that Governor Hickenlooper created after the Aurora Theater shooting, a mental health 24-hour crisis line. And, I did the story, and there are these counselors that are there day or night, 24 hours a day. And, you don't have to be thinking about killing yourself. You don't have to be thinking about hurting others. It can just be somebody to talk to. And I took advantage of it at 2:30 in the morning one night. I thought I was going to have an anxiety attack. You get to where you're afraid. I had terrible insomnia, and you get to where you're afraid to go to sleep because I started thinking I might not wake up. It was in between. They sent me home for a month to get over the pneumonia before they did the heart surgery. So it was in between there where I didn't know if I was going to live or die, or even if I wanted to live or die.
It's a frightening feeling when you wake up in the middle of the night like that. I would get up and just walk around the house.
Yeah. Well, they're there,
really?
and I encourage your viewers to
when you called them, and we've only got a few minutes, but when you called them, what did they do? What did you do? What did you say?
They talked me through it. They talked about this is normal, that there's nothing wrong with you, and that you're doing the right thing, and that sometimes, and I talked to them about the survivor guilt that I had. And, the fact is, sometimes life's just like that, and you have to learn how to accept it. And that carried a lot of weight. The counselor's name was Marin, that, it's not going to change just by me worrying myself literally to death.
Were you concerned about, because I know a lot of people are like, I can't call that number because they'll know who I am, I won't be able to get life insurance, they'll find out, they'll invade my privacy, they'll do all that.
No, after Newtown, I lived with those devils for a long time, and once I learned how to talk to people and reach out to my friends, that's when I started getting better. And, I'm not going to be ashamed that I have mental health issues. I'm going to get the help I need to solve my mental health issues, and I think that's the healthiest approach.
When you said that you went to the doctor in New York and you pulled every string, you pulled in every card, and I've seen your deck of cards. You've got a lot of cards to play because of who you know and your life experiences. There are a lot of people who don't have that.
Right, that's the problem with the system. It shouldn't work that way.
And you were able to call that, particularly when it comes to getting mental health immediately. I know parents, especially, who are trying to get help for their kids, and it's just not there. It's hard. It's hard to find.
And you think about the families who have kids that are on the spectrum. Families that have kids that have stronger challenges, And we really don't have a support network for them. You know, as much as we try to do it, there aren't the kind of hotlines, I don't think, and there aren't it's the support that we need through state services that, quite frankly, are taxpayer funded in part, which I know will bug you.
There are reasons for government, and those are one of them. I think of my son who has Down syndrome, and when you encounter him, he acts very differently. It's great, I love it, but you give him a wide berth because visually you go, oh, this is not typical right here. When you talk about people on the spectrum who don't communicate as well, they might be autistic, they might have Asperger's. You walk away going, wow, why is that guy such a jerk? Or they don't communicate well, but you don't know that, and they have to have help too, and it's hard to recognize that. All right, we've got about a minute left here, so somebody's watching this and their chest starts hurting or whatever. Quick advice. What is it you want them to know?
Get the help you need. Don't ignore it the way I did. And the same thing with mental health problems. Don't ignore it. That things don't get better and go away. Not the things that'll take your life, including mental health issues. So get the help you need. Reach out to friends. Reach out to professionals.
And it's worth it?
It's worth it. I think so.
Right, bring it over here.
So far, so good.
This was seminal to you. This was life-changing to you.
If you have a heart murmur, please go every 3 months, at least every 6 months. All they have to do is listen to it. And if you feel, any kind of mental health issue, don't let the stigma get in front of you, because it isn't worth it. And the more you talk about it, the better you feel. Because I know that going into the surgery, I said to myself, you know what, Ted, if you die, you can at least say that you had a life that was a full book. So every chapter that you're going to have after that time when you get up and you go back to Denver is just another new chapter that you need to enjoy.
And are you enjoying them now?
Absolutely.
I mean, are you enjoying them?
We are. Hey, we want everything back.
Your pleasure, my pain. Hey, thank you both. I'm so grateful for your being so brave about this and sharing it. I hope it helps. Thank you. Listen for me on KL Radio. This is Read Me in the Post, and we'll see you next week.